Hello and welcome once again to the How Long to Beat podcast. I'm Rick, this time with added flu, and with me as always are Alex and Paula. And this week, as well as talking about the games we've beaten, played and retired, not necessarily in that order, we're going to be continuing the discussion we had from last time. It was supposed to be about when a game is new or not, and it ended up just sort of being, is Persona 5 Royal a new game or not? So we're going to roll that out and expand on it and maybe talk about 2 or 3 other games. We'll see how we get along. There's loads in the show notes. Paula has absolutely gone to town. So we'll see where we end up. And speaking of Paula, do you want to roll us straight in and tell us about the game you've beaten this week?
So I've beaten the room 3. Don't believe the document. It is the room 3. Not even 5 minutes into the recording. Beautiful.
Not even 1 minute into the recording. Bless you.
Okay, so the room 3 is like a continuation to the story being told in the room 1 and 2. And actually, the room 3 is like the big ending to the room trilogy. And it actually has more than one enemy. Like, without going to too much of a spoiler, like the ending you will probably, like more than probably, get in your first round with the game. Technically kind of like a bad ending, and the game taunts you to get a better one. I actually, like, you have a letter, because you find letters as you play these games that tell you about this little story and this kind of an experiment. So for the room 3, you pretty much start the train, you get kidnapped and thrown into a cell, and then you are pretty much a laboratory rat that is supposed to escape from this place. And if you do get like the quote-unquote bad ending, you're actually taunted to keep on going, because it's like, I should have less faith on a human like you that couldn't even distinguish a house from a cell. And the puzzles in this game, I think, are a step up from the puzzles in the room 2, because I felt like the room 2 leaned a little bit too much like either in a certain kind of puzzle or like trying to spook you with some of the puzzles. And the room 3 like goes back into like how the room 1 felt like. That is like the puzzles felt like overall like really good to solve. Like you solve the thing and then you feel like smart for it, even though you don't necessarily have like an extra reward sometimes. And the overall like ambient of the game, like, it is amazing, just amazing. It also feels like a step up like in graphics and design overall. So pretty good game.
Nice. So, sorry. Can I ask, like, is the story kind of prominent in this, or is it sort of like the puzzles are the first and foremost, and the story's just kind of like there to connect them? Like, I'm wondering how.
In theory, you could like ignore the story, but the story kind of gives it flavor, because you start like some of the extra puzzles actually give you like these little notes about the place and about the person who was before you. So but the story, in my opinion, is not like the central thing, but it adds flavor to the overall experience.
Okay.
And yeah, and I find that it makes it like a little bit more entertaining, in the sense that you solve the puzzles not only for solving them, but to find these little pieces of the story and trying to see what the hell is going on here.
It's like just enough motivation, hey, to like get you through that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And is it like an overarching narrative? Does it extend between the rooms?
It kind of is like an overarching narrative, but in my opinion, because I don't remember much of the room 2 especially, I feel that you can just pick up the room 3 and still have a good time with the story.
Got you.
Or the room 4, which comes out in 2 weeks as of recording.
Wait, what?
Yeah. There's
Excuse
a room
me,
4.
what?
Did you not know? There's literally...
I didn't know. I just played the room 3 and it seemed like conclusive, not enough to me. So I was like,
yeah, well,
I guess this is the end.
Yeah,
I typed the room in because I remember you saying the graphics were a little bit different between 2 and 3, and the first thing that popped up was the room 4, and it's got a release date of February 11th. So there you go.
Excuse me, what?
Fantasy critically
I actually need to look into this.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
If they review well.
Do you know what?
Should've
Number
said
3 is
anything.
overwhelmingly positive, so I actually might be outbidding all of you.
Oh, well, we'll see. I was just saying fantasy critically pick right there. Nice. Cool.
Yep.
Okay. That sounds
So
nice.
yeah, that's very much what I played. What did you guys play this week?
Do you want to go ahead, Rick?
Jump in. Yeah, because I've got one that I know disappointed you a little bit, Paula. So I beat a game called Raji, an Ancient Epic, which I was playing last week. I'm thoroughly disappointed with this game, I have to be honest. So it does have positives, and the main one is just that there's nothing quite like it in the landscape as it stands, because games don't normally get set in that kind of environment. It's very rare that you see, outside of bit part features in series like Shin Megami Tensei, it's rare that you see those sort of Indian deities involved in storytelling. It also, I think, it is a really good sort of length price proposition. If it had been done well, paying sort of £10-15 for a solid 5-hour experience, I think is a pretty good bet. And it also has a really clever autosave implementation. So it's sort of a save anywhere thing. And instead of having multiple save files sort of to manage, whenever you start the game, Raji's sort of like sleeping on the floor wherever you stop playing. And as you start, she sort of wakes up and just carries on, and it sort of plays into the idea of this like long quest that she's going on. Also, and this isn't really a positive or a negative, this maybe just speaks a little bit to me. Do you guys remember when Heavy Rain first came out? And Jason was like,
yes.
A whole thing.
Jason?
Okay, so
Jason!
wow, this game has very much superseded that in my mind. So Raji's on a quest to find her brother Golu. And at various points, she'll like see the cart just going off in the distance, or she'll like see him off in the distance, like, go! And in my head, like that's just been a thing ever since I played it, and it fills me with a stupid sense of happiness. I'll just go to myself, go! But the game is really not good. In a number of ways, and a lot of it, I feel, just comes down to budget, which is unfortunate. I feel like they maybe bit off a little bit more than they could chew. That's most evident with the combat, which sort of fluctuates between being way too easy and obnoxiously broken difficult. Some of that's because of the animations. I think I mentioned this briefly when we spoke about it last week. There's not any way of sort of cancelling is the word I'm looking for. There's not really a way of cancelling out of an action. And because there's almost no iframes, even a dodge you can get murked off in between. And so there's a lot of instances where you can get unfairly stun locked or feel unfairly stun locked. Or because there are certain contextual commands, you can end up doing one thing that was entirely not what you meant to do. It also gets quite stale. So that the two main components of the game, outside of some like mini puzzly things, are the combat and the platforming. The platforming is actually really good. There's just not a lot of it. And I think that's just a case of, similar to sort of 2D, 3D Sonic, like the platforming sections probably take much longer to do and have much more work to do them. And so there's clearly a lot of combat's been thrown in to pad it. And it's quite obvious as a player, and it gets stale before the game ends. And the game's not even that long to begin with. It's also buggy. I had to quit out and restart a couple of times, including on the final boss, who I'd almost beaten, and then just got into like a glitchy thing where I was bouncing around the screen, couldn't attack me, I couldn't attack him. Didn't really matter because the autosave's so great, so you just sort of pop straight back in. What did matter is that it ends on a cliffhanger, and a really shit cliffhanger as well.
Oh.
So, yeah, on a deep discount, because the storytelling really is very well done, I think it's probably worth a go. I couldn't recommend it even at half price. I don't think it quite stands up. It was a 7 that sort of fell down to a 5 for me.
Oof. Do you think do you feel like maybe this like studio with like a little more of a budget under them could do a better job, or is it sort of just like some fundamental flaws in there?
It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's kind of an unfair question, but yeah, whatever you think.
not even necessarily. I mean, could the combat system be made to work? Yeah, absolutely. When it clicks, it clicks. It was a problem of balancing, and there's definitely an argument for that being a matter of time and money. It could also just be that there's some kind of deficiency with the people who coded the combat. I don't know. I would welcome a Raji 2 Electric Boogaloo. I would certainly not be opposed to checking it out, but I think as it stands, unless they went back, and I don't think they're going to at this point, and made a big patch that fixed everything, I don't think I can recommend that as is, unfortunately.
Honestly, I remember looking at the gameplay for it and I was like, wow, this all looks interesting, but I had like serious misgivings. Like I could just, like there were just some little elements that I was like, that worries me in terms of like some of the animations and stuff. It does sound like a game that, if they hopefully do get to make a sequel, might be fun to watch a Let's Play of this and then be like, let's hop on into the sequel, you know?
Do you know what? It's not great for the devs, but it's probably a perfect Let's Play game because you get all of the story and that's kind of bad though, isn't it? You get all the story and you have to actually play the game. But that's it. I can't recommend the game. That's the problem.
Some games are like that though, you know? There's some where you're like, it's actually interesting, but I don't want to go back and play it.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
But that's the only one I've beaten this week. So why don't you roll on, Alex, and tell us about all the things that you've beat? I see like 3 or 4,
all the things which are about an hour to 2 hours each.
Okay.
I didn't think I was going to have anything, so I was like, better play some DLC. So I, because Resident Evil Village, or 8, but really it's just Village, had their big,
an evil
like,
step on me, Vampire Mummy.
Yeah, oh, seriously. Yeah. Oh, my God. So that game, it's so funny, too. So, like, I don't know. RE8 had this big showcase this week, and I watched it, and I loved it. But they're like talking about how they're like, Ethan Winters is like such a big deal in it. And I'm like, dude, I don't even remember Ethan from when I played RE7. Like, he was a non-entity, you know, especially because I played RE7 in VR, and like, honestly, you are the main character in it. You know what I mean? Like, you never felt like Ethan. You felt like you were in the game. Which I don't know if this one has any VR. They've never talked about anything related to VR for this one. Which I guess wouldn't surprise me because, like, technically PlayStation VR isn't like really next gen at all. It's, you know what I mean? It's like you can play it on your PS5 with an adapter, but like, I don't know what it would be like to play a PS5 game in a PSVR mode. You know what I mean? Like, you probably have to play the PS4 version on the PS5. Anyway, it's complicated. So
I think it's multi-generation though, isn't it? In theory, the PS4 version, they could just make VR.
But what would happen if you put it in your PS5 and you play, you know what I mean? It's like, there's a whole lot of backwards compatible weirdness.
Yeah, all the dongles.
Anyway, all this to say that I saw that, and the Xbox store had like this add-on sale this week, and they had End of Zoe on sale. They had the other DLC on sale, but like, I'd kind of played some of it on my PS4 back in the day, and like, I liked some of that DLC, but like, the banned footage DLC is kind of whatever. So I played the free one, which is not a hero. It's about an hour and a half probably. This is probably the best of the 2 that I played. You play as Chris Redfield, and it's the end of the game. Like, genuinely, if you play RE7 and just stop, you're missing the end of the game, and that's this piece. Because, like, really, which I guess isn't like totally fair, but it truly is, because like, you pick up right where the game RE7 ends. So I won't talk like about spoilers or anything in that, but you pick up where it ends, and you're playing as Chris Redfield, which I guess is sort of a spoiler actually. But it's been out forever, so whatever. And it's heavy on like gun gameplay. So RE7 wasn't like super heavy on gunplay. I mean, obviously you were using guns and stuff, but it was sort of more atmospheric and like creeping around and solving puzzles. And this one is far more like get in there. You got your pistol, you got your shotgun, and you're gunning through some motherfuckers. And you are solving puzzles in this sort of like underground room based thing. It's good. It does get a little bit wavy by the end. Like, like you're fighting waves of enemies near the very end there. It like turns a little bit into like, I'm going to send a bunch of enemies against you, which they give a narrative reason for that does like make sense. But you still sort of feel like you padding this out a little bit so that this DLC feels worth it. But I was like, it was free, so why even pad it out? Anyway, which I mean, it was cool of them. It's cool that they released this for free. It's like arguably the best one, and it was free, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I did that. It was a good time. It's the first time I had played RE7 not in VR, and it's a very different experience. Like, I have to say, it's good, but when you play it in VR, it's so immersive that you really just spend a lot more time in all of the environments because you're slowly looking around them, right? And you're looking at every nook and cranny. But I found that when I was playing it without VR, I was a way more like just objectivist, like I'm just like, I gotta go get this thing, grab that thing, get that thing, and you're just like going through the motions a little bit. So it's curious to me. Like, I do think that potentially RE7 is like just a significantly better game in VR than it is not in VR. So I don't know though. I might have to play it again to see. So yeah, good DLC. I then played End of Zoe, which is also the end of the game. It's like simultaneous, right? Like it picks up a little bit before the end in like one major event, and it deals with Zoe Baker, who's like one of the family members. You're essentially in these two DLC, you're seeing the culminations of certain family members of the house that you're invading. This one is weird. So you play as Joe Baker, who is like, I can't remember if this guy was ever mentioned in the game at all. I don't think he was. He's just this old dude who I think is like the brother of one of the, like the dad in the game. And it's fucking punching. Like, the mechanics are punching. So like, no guns in this one. You do craft, like, because he's a redneck. Yeah, or not even redneck. He's like he's a hick, basically. He's like living out with the gators, and he just punches.
I thought punching was a metaphor. I thought you're like punching is in like good.
No, like, he literally punches.
Okay.
You literally walk up to like the molded, which are like the zombies of this game, and you punch them in the face, and it's just like, but like it's a first-person game that is slow. Right? Like, that's the conceit of RE7, is that you're kind of slow, and it's like a little plodding. And that's good. But then you're sort of plotting, but you also have to go and melee people in the face. It doesn't work, really. Like, it kind of works, but like not entirely. You can get overwhelmed really easily. So where I would say the Chris Redfield DLC is like you having to think about and like solve the puzzles. This one is more about you having to think about strategically how you're going to clear the enemies. So it's not bad. It's different. It's not as good as the other one. And it can be a little frustrating sometimes because occasionally you're just like, all right, I just got ambushed by that thing and there's no way to stop me from being ambushed by it. I just had to figure out it was there, like it's like a little bit like
trial and error.
Yeah, which is fine, but not really why I play Resident Evil, Like, Resident Evil is more about, like, trying to survive and, like, get out of these hairy situations, not really, like... there's usually always a way to retreat in a Resident Evil game, right? And, like, think about what you're going to do, be like, well, I fucked that up, let's go back. And occasionally you die, and that's fine, because you bite off more than you can chew. In this situation, I had a couple moments happen where it wasn't even my fault, I just didn't know the thing was there, and it just got me. And, like, before I could react, I was like, and I'm fucked. Okay, guess I gotta reload this segment, you know what I mean? And so you're just like, come on. So yeah, it's $20 usually, which is not worth $20. It is like an hour and a half, and if you paid $20 for this, I'm so sorry. I got it for $8, which I do think $8 is a fine price for it, because it does have replayability value if you want to. After, it can get really arcadey because like they let you unlock all these like kind of crazy things. So that could be enjoyable, but do not buy this full price. If I had to rate them, I'd give it like a 6-7 for this one and like 7-8 for the Not a Hero one with Chris Redfield. Maybe an 8 for the Chris Redfield one. It was good. So yeah, that's Resident Evil DLC. I don't think either of you have played this game, have you?
Nope. The only Resident Evils I've played are the DS port of the original, which wasn't great.
What? There was a DS? I don't even want to know. That sounds bad.
Yeah,
It was subtitled Deadly Silence to get that DS in there. It's a PS1 game, so it runs, and there's like these crappy touchscreen knife mini games when the dogs attack you.
That's what you should. You should put that on the back of the box. It runs.
It runs.
I also played Revelations on PC, and that was fine, but it's not really my jam. Like I kind of get a bit bored by survival horror.
Revelations isn't. I never liked Revelations. That's not Resident Evil. I don't know what the hell Revelations is. It's not Resident Evil.
I mean, it was fine. It was okay. I enjoyed it for the time I spent with it. I think I probably rushed through to the end. But
see, if you actually played through Revelations, I think you would actually enjoy the Resident Evil main games, because Revelations, I couldn't get through Revelations. Like, I love the main Resident Evil games. I would definitely try 2 at least. I think you'd find that interesting because it's very different.
What, as in the remake?
Yeah.
Do you know what? I liked the demo and then promptly forgot about it.
Yeah.
But the demo was fun enough.
Yeah. Oh, the rest of it's even better. Anyway, so yeah, I played that, and I also played Donut County, which just came on Game Pass like a few days ago. And oh my god, this game is like everything my friend Pedro wanted to be. Not gameplay wise, but like
humor wise.
Like, yeah, like sort of like tone wise, it's what my friend Pedro wanted to be, but it does it well. It's very funny and very silly. You are a raccoon who has an app. He works at a donut shop, and he has an app that like creates holes and like sucks up things. And so like the whole gameplay is like basically trying to like suck up all of the stuff in a location, and it has that sort of like I don't even know what the style you'd call it, but like the funky physics style, and like it's colorful graphics that are like very polygonal, sort of short hike-ish, without the distortion
without
effects.
the pixely filter. Yeah. It looks a little bit like a very odd inversion of the Katamari Damacy sort of thing.
100%. And it's in that, except I would say this is better than Katamari. I'm not a huge Katamari fan. I think that game.
No, me neither. I tried it, didn't like it.
Yeah, mechanics are sort of shite. This is like a tight 2-hour game that has funny ideas that also make sense, and the humor is just sort of like, I laughed out loud a couple times playing this. I was like, that's pretty good. And it's on Game Pass. If you got Game Pass, I would play it. It's fun and simple. Has anyone tried this one out? I don't think Rick. No,
I haven't tried it, but I saw it on Game Pass and I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a try.
I recommend it. Like I said, 2 hours. You could beat this in an afternoon. I did. I just beat it in an afternoon while I was looking after my pup. She was entertaining herself. Don't mind.
Don't mind me as I install it.
Yeah, it's super like a small tune. Anyway, so that's what I played this week. Yeah, and
Do you want to roll on into your retired?
Yeah, why not?
I've cut you off midway through.
No, that's fine. Let's talk about what I retired this week, because this was a disappointing retired. Yeah, I'm gonna go off for a second here, and then we'll come back. So I downloaded the game Indivisible, which has had some issues, by the way, with their like publishers and stuff. There's been some stuff with this.
Yes, I've seen those. Yeah, there's some allegations of a not very nice nature against the company head, aren't there?
Yeah, so anyway, you can look into that. So first off, I feel for the developers. But secondly, this is by the Skullgirls developer. So they make the Skullgirls games, beautiful art, gorgeous looks and stuff. I got this game. So here's the deal. It's pretty. It has fun characters. The voice acting is fine, I guess. It's good enough. It has some interesting different accents, which I thought was really cool. I was like, that's neat. It sounds like there's a diverse array of people who were brought in to voice act in this, which I was like, that's really cool. I like that. It has a lot of interesting ideas. And none of it fucking works in the end. So like, okay, it's 2D. It's a platformer. but it's also an RPG, which sounds interesting enough. You're like, that's kind of cool, you know, like fucking Super Paper Mario's done that, right? Like Paper Mario on the Wii did it, and it was pretty cool. It worked. Some I would argue it didn't, but I think it did. But the issue in this one is that it's trying to be like a JRPG, right? Where you go on an adventure and you're going to go and you're going to meet a lot of people and you're going to go to all these wonderful new lands. But part of the joy of JRPGs and part of the joy of these sort of like semi-open world RPGs is that you go to interesting locations where you can meet people and you can engage in side quests or different parts of quests. And you know what I mean? Like it has like a living world. But in this game, it's two-dimensional. So like there's no real exploration when you enter any of the towns. You enter a town and it's just like a row of fucking NPCs who, by the way, do nothing. They do absolutely nothing. They don't give you shops. There's no quests. They just talk to you. What? Like I was like in this town and I went, why should I talk to anyone? Like literally it's like sort of interesting, but what is the point? Like you enter into a city and there's nothing to do except go to the next like fucking checkpoint and then come back. So you're like, okay, why are there cities in this game in the first place if I can't interact with anyone in them and actually do anything of any sort of import? And then the platforming, by the way, is so specific. Like I enjoyed it for the most part. It has some interesting ideas. So you, again, like I said, two-dimensional frame. So you're going to be going like you're sliding under shit and you can jump up and you can wall jump. And like what's nice about this is it fixes something that I'll complain about in a few minutes on a different game.
Oh, no.
But it's okay. It's just because of the time. And the wall jumping in this, it does do something good where you don't have to press a specific direction to wall jump. You just hit the button, it hits, it jumps. So that's really smooth. But then it has this thing where you have this fucking axe that you can like hit into the wall to like sort of like, you know, like in Tomb Raider or something where you hit like a spike into a wall and it lets you climb. But it has like a delay. So when you jump and you try to fucking use your stupid axe, it like takes at least a few frames to actually start. Yeah. Right. So you're like, when do I have to press this fucking thing? And it's not consistent. This is what drove me nuts, is that sometimes if you're in like a different animation of the jump, it like starts at a different... I was going nuts. I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why does this thing seem to go at just fucking random times? And so I'm like, okay. And then I learned, so I was gonna, like, I was talking with you all about this game because I was like, I wonder if this gets any better. And from what I've read is that it just gets fucking harder because it's doing what you talked about, where it's padding out its weak ass combat segments with insane platforming so that you have to like spend all this time trying to get to the next thing. Okay, now let me talk about combat. So, yeah, that's only one part. Combat in this game is an interesting idea. You play as this lady who can like suck people into her head. I don't know. It's fucking whatever. And so you have characters and like you are supposed to be able to collect a roster of like just so many characters. And basically every character has 3 attacks, essentially. A little more than that, but for the most part, 3. You have your basic attack, which is like a button press. You can have an attack where you press up in a button or down in the button. Yeah, so you also have special moves where you can like press the RB and like the same button, but essentially you set a character to each of the buttons, right? Like the face buttons, like X, Y, A, B, or, you know, square, triangle, whatever on PlayStation, which is interesting. So when you're playing, it's kind of like an action RPG. You'll have a couple different ones, like maybe you have 3 A presses in a row. And you can use that for your character, and they'll have to like load back up. And then you also have like a block button, and that you can use when you enter into a block animation. So the combat is interesting, and at first you're like, this is kind of fun, but that's it. Like that's all it will ever be. Is that right? Is just pressing these couple face buttons, and theoretically you get all these new characters that you can try out different stuff for. But the enemies don't really change to the point where you need to really switch up your characters ever. And it becomes a point where I'm like, why would I ever switch characters? They're not leveling up, really. My main character levels up, but all the rest of them sort of just level with her. So why would I ever try different characters? When I find the ones that work for me, what's the point of switching, right? So basically, combat just devolves into this long, repetitive slog of just hitting these couple buttons, using your couple things, like juggling someone into the air and knocking them down. And I just realized, like, I was playing and I was like, this is all this game is going to be for the rest of this goddamn game. And it's like over a 20-hour game. I'm like, oh my God. If I have to play at least 18 hours, I think 18 or something like that. And I'm like, if I'm going to spend 20 hours doing frustrating platforming and fucking monotonous combat, I'll go insane. So I just was like, no, wipe my freaking hands clean of it. And this isn't even to talk about, like, the story is interesting. And it's the only thing that kept me slightly invested. But it's not interesting enough. So yeah, it's a major disappointment for me. Like, this game, had so much potential and was so interesting, and it was on Game Pass and it was leaving Game Pass. It is probably going to be gone by the time this comes up. Maybe not. Maybe it's only on for a few more days. It's like February 1st, I think, is when it's gone. And if it's still on, don't play it. Just don't. Don't care. Don't play this game. I just don't recommend it at all in the slightest. Maybe watch someone play it. No, you know what? Don't even. Just don't play this game. This game is dumb. I don't like it.
Did you ever play the Valkyrie Profile games? Because it mechanically seems like they took a lot of cues from that. So it's an RPG series, Norse mythology, similar kind of setup in terms of 2D dungeons and then 4 characters on each face button combat. Mm-hmm. In fairness, they gave you an incentive to switch them up that's somewhat tied into the story, so you're constantly like losing and regaining characters.
See, that would have been interesting, right? If you're given a reason to switch them up, I'd be into that. From what I've heard, those Valkyrie games are actually good. And like this, for me, I don't know. It's trying to be a lot of things, you know? Like playing it, I was like, you're trying to be like Golden Sun and like shit like this, where you're trying to like, but you know what I mean? Where it's like you get to go on this adventure, and like all of those RPGs where you get to go out into the world and go explore, and you get your airship or whatever, and you go to different places. Like, it wants to be that, but I don't feel like it learned any of the lessons about what makes those games fun and makes those games interesting, and instead just tried to shoehorn it into the concept they had. I don't like it. Anyway,
really? I hadn't got that impression.
Yeah, there's my Pokemon Sword and Shield rant for y'all. for those
the game that's going to receive my ire to be decided.
Yeah, right. So anyway, that's what I did. Paula, did you retire? You didn't retire anything this week, huh?
I didn't.
So why don't you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paula.
No, I just been playing, but I haven't retired anything. So, Rick, you seem to have retired a couple of games.
Yeah, I think this speaks to our differences in approach, where me and Alex just try lots of shit and see what sticks, whereas you're quite deliberate in what you pick and play, which isn't a criticism, it's just an observation. Mm-hmm. So I've retired 2 games this week, and the first, actually, I can sort of empathise with what you're saying, Alex, about this game isn't going to get any different if I keep on playing it, and that's Rabbids Go Home, which, to be clear, is a good game. Right? I didn't have any of the negative feelings that you clearly had with Indivisible. If I'd come to it in maybe my early teens or when it actually came out, I think I would have probably played it the whole way through and had a blast with it. But once you've played a level, you've sort of played all of the levels.
Gotcha.
And they're all fun, but I've got other things I want to be playing, so it's like I feel like I've had that experience. I'm not wedded to the concept of seeing the ending. Also, it's a Rabbids game. They want to go to the moon. Like it's not a story that I'm especially invested in. Yeah. And then the other one is Shaman King Master of Spirits for the GBA. The first one, you're playing number 2.
Yeah.
And it was you playing number 2 that compelled me to play number 1. And I think I'll still eventually go and play number 2, because both from you and the general sort of online consensus, that is the much better game. Yeah. I had 2 core problems with the first one. Those being that the actual moment-to-moment gameplay is paper thin. And the second being that the map is fucking horrendous. So
gotcha.
I don't know if they improve it in number 2, but in number 1 at least, the way it works is that the map is a series of nodes.
Yeah. And
each node is a like a Mario sort of 2D level. linear. There's a start on the left and there's an end on the right. Now, where that's different from Order of Ecclesia, and this maybe is just a matter of expectations on my part going in. In Order of Ecclesia, you have a hub area, and then you can jump to either side of any one of the nodes. What it feels like they've done with Shaman King, because you can't do that, and you're just sort of following them along, is they couldn't be asked to design a cohesive map, but they also wanted to be able to call it a Metroidvania. So instead of having a level-based structure, which I think would have suited the game a lot better, personally, they've cobbled together this wanky map that's just like a pain to navigate.
I think they did fix that quite a bit in the second one, because like in the second one, yeah, you get a power part of the way through. So like basically at the time when they sort of expect you to start exploring, they give you a power where you can just skip right to the end of a path you've already cleared. Yeah, so it like they really, and like they have tons of these like interesting bosses and stuff, and they very much like. Yeah, I think they must have learned lessons from the first. I can't talk specifically on the first because like I haven't played it, but it sounds to me like they maybe learned some lessons from that one.
Albeit that is a bit of a hacky workaround that doesn't really fix it, just sort of mitigates it based on how you've described it.
Well, it actually ties in kind of nicely to the you'll see if you play it. Yeah,
I'll see eventually. Well, I will get around to it, and this is part of the reason as well that I didn't want to sort of persevere, because the game isn't especially difficult, or certainly what I played of it wasn't. But it's a case of when number 2 is on my backlog, when Hollow Knight's on my backlog, when all these other same as when we talked about Bloodstained a few weeks ago. Like being an okay Metroidvania just isn't good enough because of the competition and because of the contemporaries. So yeah, again, it's not a terrible game. It's just not an especially good one. It's not one that you can recommend over too many other great games in the genre. So
yeah, I would definitely say like these are fun if you are like me, and like you've played just through like every fucking Metroidvania, and you're like, I just want more.
Even then, I think I'd probably go and replay Symphony over playing this. Like if I'd already played all of the Vanias, I think I'd go and replay Symphony before, or any of the Aegis before I sort of persevere through this.
I'm just a weird. I don't love replaying lots of games. I'm just like, I've been here. Give me the new. Anyway, that's good to know about the first one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we move on to what we're playing? And since we just talked a whole bunch, Paula, do you want to tell us what you've been playing?
It is funny because like you just said that you're not like too into replaying games, but here I have like three games that are technically replays here. I'm still slowly but surely making progress through Koudelka Studio no Kiseki. Not too much to say there. I'm also playing Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon of the Blade of Light. Last night I finished chapter 16, and here like I actually had my first need of a choice that I had to choose between recruiting one or the other character. So in Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon the Blade of Light, you sometimes have like these villages like in the map, and as long as one of the enemies thieves doesn't get there first and pretty much destroy the village, you are sometimes able to get like money or an item, or sometimes you can like recruit a character from there. So you have like these two little villages side by side, and they do not get along. So you either have what's his name, Aaron or Samson, and I choose Aaron because of the one item he was carrying that is like a rider's slayer, I think it was. And that map especially was like full of enemies that were like on horseback. So I am very glad I did that, otherwise I would have been screwed. Still, like, so far, I'm still like quite satisfied with how the game is playing out. I would have like, I think I had like one gripe with the game that is like in this one chapter. I think it is chapter 15 or 14. No, it is chapter 15, where there's this character that you cannot beat, and has like this spell that is it's the kind of spell that makes you go like, okay, I hope I have either like a character with enough defense to take this, which I didn't, or a character that was fast enough to evade most of the damage. So I kind of have like this play between like a couple of Pegasus Knights, a Pegasus Knight and a Cavalier that were like switching places, like trying to hold off this one mage because otherwise I would have been screwed. The mage eventually like goes away, but you just have to pray that he will grow bored before any of your units die, which he usually does if you play your cards right. So yeah, that's it for Fire Emblem. I've been also making progress on Hakuoki, Ghetto Wings, and Edo Blossoms. I'm kind of like on a Hakuoki rampage. Unlike some other otome games that have been released, especially like during the last year, there isn't like a specific order you have to play the roads.
Right.
But it is advised that you play Hijikatas first, because since it is a game played during the Bushin War, you see everything like from inside, because Hijikata is like the commander. You see everything from the inside of the Shinsengumi, like that side of the war. And then you can like go with these various other characters, some that are Shinsengumi, some that aren't. One in particular that is a very interesting figure called Sakamoto that sorry if I derailed this a little bit, like there was like an extra credit special where they did like an extra history series on the Bushin War especially, and it was quite entertaining. And they said like you could tell who Sakamoto was because he wore like the whole samurai kind of outfit except for the shoes, because he had Western shoes. He has a supporter of the Westerners, like trading and with the Japanese, pretty much.
Okay.
Then you have like this one other road that is like from the side of the demons, because like it is like I want to say like a fantasy kind of twist on the Bushin War.
Right. Okay.
Did you think this was genuinely? Yeah. Did you?
I thought it was just a people versus people. I didn't think there were demons involved as well. This is a second job, just keepking up with all of this.
Oh, sorry.
No wonder you have to write it all in a book, Paula.
I mean, it's technically humans against humans, and demons are just like taking along because reasons, but they aren't usually allowed to intervene on the humans' affairs. Because reasons. So you kind of have like this outlook like from the outside on this route, and you can see like the war like from another point of view. And then you have like the one that is supposed to be like the last route you play, or at least like what it is advised. It is the one where the protagonist kind of like doesn't get too involved with any one of the characters and just like watches as everything unfolds before her. And to be honest, I don't quite remember that last route, so it's gonna be interesting to actually see it for myself.
Right, because you played this before, right? Like that's the...
I played this before all the way back. I think it was like in 2017, maybe 16.
Oh, so
maybe
long ago.
18 years.
Back in the before times when we could still go places.
Yeah. I mean, it is long enough, and I play like enough visual novels and other kind of games to start seeing some faults with the, I don't want to say the narrative, but like with the overall translation, because like, as I say, I'm trying to learn Japanese, and I'm starting to catch some, I don't want to say mistakes, but Japanese sometimes is a little bit hard to properly translate to English because you can literally say like a grammatically complete sentence with just a verb, and it makes total sense there.
Fantastic.
So there are times where I listen to the dialogue and I kind of understand what they're saying, but the way of how it was translated, I'm not quite sure who worked on the PC port of Hakuoki, but sometimes the translation seems a little bit off on some places.
Sometimes they localize it based off a different script too. Like I've seen that happen before with Japanese games. So sometimes they're given like a textual script, and it's just like not the same as what ends up in the game. Yeah, it can happen occasionally. It depends when they're made. I doubt that happened.
It is weird because I am sorry. It is weird because I remember playing like the Vita port, and I think at some points the Vita port has like a different way of saying things. So I feel like unless my memory is shit and they're like both the same script but in different format, I feel like the Vita port is like the better option in terms of translation.
It's also on Vita, so it's the better option by default.
It is.
Vita
apologies. Vita supremacy.
So yeah, like that's how we can like. Oh yeah, and sometimes you start to notice like how some routes were like added later because I literally just played a route that had a little bit of overlap with one of the previous routes. I'm like, But from what I remember, that is like probably the one route that has like a lot of overlap with another one. So hopefully I have like a different perspective on the next character that I play that I just remember is fucking Snake. Okay, next game.
Moving on.
Moving on. We played another round of Monster Prom PvP.
We did.
With friends. So,
I finally got a date.
Hey!
It is because in this time around, Rick was Dragon or Ube. One of them got a date.
Both of them.
The other one got a secret ending. Oh yeah. All you three got a date. One of you actually got a secret ending. I'm like, I'm my own person at the party because this one character keeps following me around, and I went to the store and I was like, okay, I'm gonna purchase this random item because you can buy a box that has a totally random item, and I got an item that gave me a lot of money but murdered all my stats.
Literally made you anti-fun.
Yeah, it literally made me anti-fun because I ended up with like -1 fun.
Wow.
Basically,
so pretty much
Paula,
I was to fail
Paula
any...
needs to... Right, I'm going to stop and I'm going to let you... Right. My apologies. Go
on. So basically, I was doomed, absolutely doomed to try to get a date because like you kind of need stats to woo the person you're trying to go to prom with.
Makes sense.
And my stats are other shit. Like my smarts went like from 11 to 7, and my fun just went to anti-fun immediately. So I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. And the worst thing that I wasn't able like to get an item that would like make another character like follow me instead of the crazy princess character who I was trying to get rid of her. I was trying to get rid of her. So yes, because like no matter what I did, she continued following me, and it was fun because like there was like this one, the first scene. It was this character and another character, and everyone was like, "Yeah, the first choice sounds like it's gonna be like extra points, like from the other character. You're gonna get brownie points from that guy." And everyone thought that, and we were all wrong. So after that, and it happened again later.
Yes, it did. It happened twice.
So it was like, okay, I'm gonna pretty much play Russian roulette with this gift box. And I ended up alone because of it.
You just need to accept that you're destined to be. And the game's not going to rest until she's with her. It's just the way it seems to be going.
It seems to be going that way. I'm gonna find a way to get a secret ending with the eel so I can kill the princess.
If you can even do that. I would be so about it if you could.
That would be amazing.
Wow, that sounds wild.
It's the writing. I think we said last week, like it's like Among Us in that you need to get a good group, but once you do, the writing just sails. It sticks. The landing on almost everything. I mean, we were all laughing our heads off like the entirety of the run.
Well,
it's a lot of fun.
I feel like that's a good segue into what you've been playing, right, Rick? I mean, do you have anything else, Paula? But I think that was it, right?
That was it for me.
Nice. That's a great segue because you were playing that with her. So, what have you been doing?
I was. So obviously, I got a date in Monster Prom because the universe isn't trying to force me to be with the Mer Princess. Other than that, I'll start with the one that you really weren't sold on, Alex, which is Hades. So I've literally played a single run of the game so far. I had a little bit of time last night and I started it. The fundamentals seem on point. Motion feels great. Combat feels really good. I know I haven't even scratched the surface of the stuff that's available there, but it feels like exactly what I wanted it to be so far. So I'm very optimistically excited about that. I've still been playing Curses and Chaos on Vita, which is a fun little pick-me-up game on that platform. The other game I've been picking up and putting down is a game called Sushi Striker Way of Sushido for the 3DS, which is a weird game. So it's a puzzler where it's like competitive sushi eating. So the play surface is 7 like sushi conveyor belts, 3 on each side, and then a shared lane in the middle. And you have to draw lines between the plates to like make combos that you can then flick at the other person to take off their health. But you also have these sushi sprites that like activate special abilities, and there's an RPG system behind it, and there's like this weirdly drawn anime about like the power of sushi. It is bonkers. It is what it is. And I can see myself ultimately not finishing this game because the core puzzle, like the actual, I want to call it combat because it's an RPG, but like the actual puzzle game of connecting and firing off sushi is good fun, but the stuff around it feels like guff. And I already have the sense that at some point it's going to expect me to grind. Yeah. And I think when it hits that point, I'm just going to be like, nah. Sort of I've had my fill thing, because again, the core mechanical stuff is really good.
It sounds
think they've tried to overplay the hand.
Okay, sorry. I was gonna say, it sounds like a worse Battle Chef Brigade, which I don't know if you've played that one. That's on the Switch.
I've heard of it.
That's a good game. That sounds similar to this with the RPG elements, but it's very good. Doesn't overstay its welcome either.
Although I thought Battle Chef Brigade, there was like an ingredient collection phase and then a cooking phase.
Yeah, it's different. I'm not saying it's the same. I just mean like it sounds to me like this is maybe Battle Chef Brigade is what this game wants to be at its best.
Maybe,
you know maybe
I don't know. It's fine for now. It's nice, sort of again popping open, playing a couple of battles, and then putting down again, which is all I really need from it. I've played a little bit of Soul Silver. I think I'm probably going to have to set aside a weekend just to get back into it. Because the problem is I played 3 badges worth and then set it down. I vaguely remember what my party is. I don't remember where I'm at. I don't remember where I'm headed. I don't really have any plan for what I'm doing with it. So I need to set some time aside to pick that properly up, I think. I've been playing a bit more Cyberpunk since the patch came out. It's still great. I'm still having a good time with it somehow. Can't say I've really noticed any difference from the 1.1. I think maybe I'm getting a couple of extra frames, maybe, when I'm driving. And I don't remember it being there before, but I think there's a take all button now, which is a nice QOL thing.
Oh, nice.
Feels like it should have been there from the start now that I have it, but we take what we get, I suppose.
Like, I know this isn't part of it, but the fact that this patch introduced a new game-breaking bug is the fucking funniest goddamn thing I've ever I was like, this game should have never released. Like, I was like, this should have been out in 2 more years.
They put their best efforts in, but the QA testers didn't pick up that game-breaking bug.
Oh yeah, fuck that dude, man. Throwing the QA testers under the rug. They're like, dude, we saw all these problems.
I think both the they're throwing the QA testers under the bug thing is an unfair reading of what they said. At the same time, I don't think anybody believes that they didn't find those bugs.
What he really should have said is, our QA team didn't make the reports short enough for us to read, and thus, I didn't know about all these problems.
I was thinking, like, was it like last week, where CD Projekt Red like issued like these apology over on Twitter, and then they laid out like these, like the roadmap for like the updates and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the first update after that is like, we got rid of these game breaking back, but now you have another problem. So like,
you know, you don't win when you apologize, right? Online, there's no way to win. In fact, most of the time, I think it's a useless endeavor. I'm like, because like honestly, there's just no way to succeed in doing that, because it will always fall short because you fucked up initially, right? Like, at least when I talk about public apologies, apologizing to someone is wonderful, but public apologies are just kind of always a failure. So like, I appreciate on one level that they do this, but I'm also just like, dude, but it doesn't matter, man. You fucked up. Just release the good stuff at this point.
It's contextual, because obviously any apology, having released it, is sort of sorry you feel that way sort of thing. There's no sincerity to it. But I think agree with you. And it probably speaks a lot to how well the Hello Games people dealt with it with No Man's Sky, where they just noped off the internet for like 4 months and went and fixed the game. And then they're like, hey, we're back. Good now.
Honestly,
Cyberpunk's still good. Like, I'm enjoying it. It feels like a 9 out of 10 to me. And I understand that I have blessed hardware and somehow like I've had the experience that it was probably as good as an experience as you can expect on a console from 2013.
Yeah.
For a game that was targeting graphics cards that literally just came out and 99% of people can't buy for love nor money. Yeah. So I've been playing more of that. I've been enjoying more of that. What else haven't I touched on? The only one I haven't mentioned, and I think I'll have finished this by next week, is Ratchet and Clank Tools of Destruction for the PS3. And oh my god, I can't believe I slept on this game for so long. It is wonderful. It's more Ratchet and Clank. So I think when I spoke about this a week or two ago, I was a little bit skeptical. And for want of a better term, the opening of the game feels very Uncharted-y. It's all sort of cinematic, a little bit on railsy, much more linear than, I mean, they're linear games, but they're linear with the option to go back and revisit previous planets with off the beaten path stuff, with like random golden bolts that you can go and find. And after the opening couple of hours, Tools of Destruction opens up into that. And once it does that, off to the races. Does everything that the original Ratchet and Clank trilogy did for me. The humor's still there. The weapons are still there. Mechanically, it's all still there. The story's not like War and Peace, but it's off the wall and engaging enough as is.
Man,
go on.
I was just gonna say, I gotta say, like, Sony did the best thing they ever could when they fucking bought up Insomniac. I'm just like thinking about it right now, and it's like, yo, this company has released so many of their best games. Like,
bangers, yeah,
right? Weren't they behind
Rift Apart? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, I know, right? Like, they had Spider-Man, and then Rift Apart's coming out, and you're just like, damn, dude. Like, I mean, I guess they fumbled a little. They did the Resistance series, which is like, you know, we don't talk about Resistance. Resistance is fine, but it's that's all. It's just fine. But the Ratchet and Clank, like, even their last Ratchet and Clank game was excellent. Like, I loved that game. It got me into Ratchet and Clank. I had never played Ratchet and Clank before.
Tangent. I was not sold on Ratchet 2016.
No.
No. And some of it's maybe just going to be the fact that I grew up playing the original and had replayed the original quite recently. But the 2016 version they did, you can tell was hamstrung by the fact that it had to map to the movie, which by all accounts wasn't a great movie. Had a few sort of big name actors who phoned it in. Never have I played a game that looked more beautiful and felt more lifeless. It just was really weird. Like it was like a husk of a game I had so much passion for, just dead behind the eyes. And it's not that it even wasn't fun to play; it just didn't feel right. So I hope they knock out of the park with Rift Apart.
Fair. And
hot take, I haven't played 2 or 3 yet, but I played the PSP one, the Vita one, and the original Resistance. They're all great. It's not they're just fine. Like, they're good games.
Sure. But I'm also not a huge FPS. I'm not a huge FPS.
I'll just mention my neutral ground and say I haven't played any Ratchet and Clank. So.
Oh well, there you go.
Listen, you're excused until you finish 13 Sentinels. Then you can think about Ratchet and Clank.
Oh no! Not this again.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't retired or anything, but I've just sort of parked Bloodstained and Koudelka for a minute because I'm playing other games on like handhelds in my Xbox. But I'm intending to finish those. I started playing Immortals: Fenyx Rising, which is still the stupidest name in the world for that friggin' game. It's so dumb. I mean, the main character's name is Fenyx. Still, it's dumb. It's very dumb. Why they spell
I love the fact that Monster Energy Drink was suing them over the name Gods and Monsters.
Oh, yeah. They should have just taken it, right? And been like, whatever, Gods and Monsters. You can't... Fuck it. It's a video game, not a drink. Anyway, yeah. So...
There might be confusion with our brand, man.
And I'm like, no one will be confused. Also, the people who are buying this game are not buying your energy drink, probably. Like, I'm just being like, this is sort of not really aimed at like the like gamer, like Monster Energy Drink gamers. You know, they're not playing Immortals: Fenyx Rising. All right, like.
Can you imagine you went for a video game, you came back with a 4-pack?
You're like, I tried putting it into my Xbox and it broke.
You wanted the monster, didn't you, dear?
Yeah, right. Here you go. I know. Just oh my god. Anyway, just corporate bullshit. Which look, this is a Ubisoft game, so this is already corporate bullshit. But regardless, it's made by Ubisoft Quebec, which is sort of neat. Like, as someone in Canada, I'm like, it's kind of cool when I play a game. Then I'm like, ooh, it's made where I'm from. And so like that's always sort of fun. It's good. It is a solid, like, it's a good game. It did give me warm fuzzy feelings because like if it feels like playing a game from the GameCube era, and not in a bad way, not as in like it's dated or something. It's just like the feel of it. What?
Huh? So what? Because no one bought it.
Because no one bought it. Oh, that's fine. Actually, it seems like people are buying it quite a bit right now. It's had quite a resurgence. Like, I'm seeing it on like Twitch and all this, and like it's been on sale and stuff. And so like I think it's doing better than one might expect. Especially, I don't think they spent much on this game. In terms of a Ubisoft game. So I think that like they released it full price, and then I don't think they mind putting it on sale. Because look, Ubisoft sales their games so much. Like, they just like drop them in half and they're like, go to town. It probably is selling about as much as Legion is, I would imagine. Anyway, whatever. I don't care about sales. But the game itself is... it's Breath of the Wild. Like, I know we talked about game closing before. It is Breath of the Wild. Like, it honestly... But it's kind of funny because it's like, look, let's be honest. Breath of the Wild took Ubisoft's ideas from the Assassin's Creed games and sort of changed them, right? Like, because it went and it took the towers and stuff and the open world design that Ubisoft had kind of like perfected in the last while. And so it's almost like Ubisoft's like taken those ideas and they're like back home in a way. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, it feels like full circle in some ways, where it's like, now they're like, oh, well, why don't we put in some of the Assassin's Creed gameplay? Which I will say, there's no breakable weapons in this, which I'm like, thank you. That was the stupidest part of Breath of the Wild. And like, there's a little bit, well, actually, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's a little bit less creativity in the sense that in Breath of the Wild, like, there's more systems that I think interact with each other, so it has more of that. But it's just kind of a fun game. It's pretty funny, actually. It's definitely funny in the sense of like there's a lot of jokes that you're like, okay, this is like PG enough for kids to play, but like if you're an adult playing it, you're like, I know what you're talking about, because it's like big myths. So like they do have a joke about how Aphrodite was born, and like it's just, that legend is like that the pearl dropped into the ocean, and yeah. So there's narrators who are like talking over as you're playing, and he was like, Zeus, that wasn't a pearl, man. And he's like, no, it was a pearl. And he's like, come here, and like you hear him like going whisper, and then he's like, what? And, like it's just like it's very good and like just kind of funny. Because like if a kid were to play it, they wouldn't know what they're talking about, but as an adult you're like balls.
Yeah.
So it's just like pretty funny, right? Where you're like, those. I get it. Yeah. So it's
I was thinking
you'll get it when you're older humor. I like
yes, it's a lot of that. Was that?
I was thinking like the guts like constantly like talking over the gameplay. I get them like it reminds me a little bit of Kid Icarus Uprising, which I haven't finished. But
great game though. Great game.
It is a great game. I owe it to the game to finish it at some point. But you still have like this dynamic of the characters, either like Pete and Palutena or other characters introduced later in the game, like talking over whatever the fuck you're doing. And in that sense, they go to town and back with the puns.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that in this game because like Zeus and Prometheus are talking because like Prometheus is telling your story basically, and it's pretty great. Like there's one point literally where this is like slight spoiler for like the first 20 minutes of the game again, but you enter like these like pits of Tartarus, right, which are like the shrines, and you jump into them, and at one point she like jumps in and Zeus is like, oh, and there ends the story of Fenyx, and he starts like playing the credits and it's like game by Zeus, made by Zeus, world by Zeus, and like all these sort of things, and he's like, oh, so sad she dead. It's like, and for me he's like, no dude, what, no stop it. It like goes in, like there's all these like little meta things that they do, and I'm like, part of me is like, this is sort of lame, but it's also like very funny. So yeah, I really appreciate it. It's like, I think it's like, I kind of like it more than Assassin's Creed Odyssey in some ways, because it's like just sort of goofier. And the reality is that the combat can get a little bit like, eventually you're like, all right, sort of just like smack the swords, but they do introduce these like new mechanics and stuff that are just sort of fun. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it right now. It's very cool. The world's gorgeous. 0 loading times on the Xbox Series X. It's just like boom, I'm in every second. So really nice.
I hope for a game that runs on Switch.
Yeah, right. You would hope. Although I'm sure the loading times on Switch are a pain in the dick. So we'll see.
Oh, I dread to think.
Yeah.
I heard that it actually runs like quite well. It doesn't have like the same draw distance and stuff, but it runs pretty decently.
I would imagine. I mean, look, if it's a Breath of the Wild clone, you would hope it works on the friggin' Switch. If Breath of the Wild worked this better. But let's be honest, Ubisoft's been pretty good at making stuff work on the Switch. So still playing Ring Fit Adventure. Still love it. Still great. Shaman King Master Spirits 2, I've gotten further into the game. It's opening up more and introducing some neat power-ups for traversal. This is the thing that I mentioned actually earlier. So there's a wall jump mechanic, and I can't honestly fault the game for this, because this was how all games were doing wall jump mechanics at the time, and also how Castlevania games were doing it. But like the wall jump is finicky as shit. It's like when you jump, you sort of have to like hold the directional button to like get a grip on the wall, but then you also
which way you're going,
yeah, then you also kind of have to like immediately switch and press it at the right time. But then if you don't do it, you're gonna anyway. You eventually get the hang of it, but you're like, oh, we've come a long way since this point, right? And so
you just have to get good at it.
Get good. Yeah, hey, I got very good at it by the end of it, but I'm also glad that I'm playing with save states, because some of these bosses are like no fucking joke. They're hard as shit. Like I was like, holy fuck. I was like, oh fuck, shit. And I'm like, I had to like save state a couple of them because I was like, oh damn, that fucking shit was hard. And they introduced some really cool mechanics. At one point, I was like falling down this like endless like cliff, and there's like 2 bosses coming at me, and I'm like, fuck, and like it's pretty cool. So now I'm still playing. So anyway, that was a whole lot. We talked for ages about all our games. So why don't we move into our topic for the week, which is kind of a part deux, one might say, of when is a game considered new. And we're gonna, I think, go through a couple categories this time of some things that Paula has identified as different concepts for new. We're gonna really shake up the whole idea of new. why don't we start with the first one that was written here? Games getting a new life on a more popular system, which I just wrote all of the Wii U games.
I hadn't read this before. That's great.
That's what Alex.
Right, but like,
I know it wasn't.
This actually ties in because Pikmin 3 was the largest Pikmin series launch on the Switch this year. So not on the Wii U, Pikmin 3 on the Switch was the largest launch for the Pikmin series. So like genuinely that game got an entirely new life and might as well be a new game on the Switch because like no one played it.
Can we recognize though that if it's like a port to a system that people are actually buying, that's a port, that's not a new game. Like,
100%.
That's inherent in the process. Right, okay. So
no, I'm totally on with you, but I do think it's funny that like it kind of like it really gives it new life in a lot of ways, right? I'd also sort of argue that maybe games like GTA 5, which like obviously still had a strong life on the old consoles, but like when it came onto the new ones, its online system and like game got like so huge. It was already big, but it just got even bigger.
Yeah, I mean they are arguably their own beast. The online components, I see what you're saying, to the point that they're selling the RDR2 online. For a $5, which is hilarious to me that they're selling the online that they then want to sell ye olde shark cards to you through. It's like if you're going to do it that way, just let me play online for free. Like fuck charging me a $5 to try and sell me more. Not that I'm even the target audience, but you know.
Paula and I were actually talking about this too, though. That like sometimes it's hard to even know if a game is receiving new life on a more popular system when you haven't played it on the older one. You know what I mean? Like there are tons of games that you end up playing and then you find out, like I find out years later, like, oh, for instance, fucking Super Mario Bros. From the NES, Mario Brothers Deluxe on the Game Boy Color. I thought that was a new game, right? Like as a kid, I didn't know that was the Nintendo Entertainment System. I think I only clocked that is a thing maybe like a couple years ago. Could have only been this year that actually clicked into my brain that was the Nintendo Entertainment System version. I didn't know. I just thought it was a Game Boy Mario game, you know?
Oh, bless you.
Oh my god.
Amazing.
I was thinking like, I think I forgot out last week after the recording that I said like, E14, like one of the Otome games that I played last week. I didn't know it originally released for the Vita. Well, in part because it only released on Japan. And as much as the Vita, it is super popular in Japan. From what I can tell, it didn't seem that it got on too much on the Vita. But then it came out on Switch, and I swear every other time I open Twitter, there's like new fan art or some new comment about the game from one of the fans, which I'm totally okay with. I was thinking like, there's this one RPG it was supposed to be like a crossover between Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei. That is Tokyo Mirror Sessions, Sharp FE.
Yes, yeah, #FE. Which basically wasn't either franchise in the end. It just was like
it ended
a JRPG.
Which I'm totally okay with because, like, from what I played in the Wii U and on the Switch, and I haven't finished the game on either platform because, of course, I haven't.
Hakuoki's not going to replay itself.
Hakuoki's not going to replay itself. God realizes I'm going to replay itself. But the game, like, there were like people that love RPG, like in my circle of friends, but they didn't own a Wii U. And they, one of my friends played Tokyo Mirror Sessions on the Switch, and he was like, "Where has this game been all my life?" Because he really loved it, and also like because it is Tokyo Mirror Sessions Sharp FE Encore, because it has like an extra chapter or something, and it also has like all the DLC that came like in the first game. But instead of giving it to you like right away, you do like these little extra dungeons that actually like you actually have to do like little extra dungeons, but there were like different dungeons in the first game to get that stuff.
if a game is new to you, that doesn't really make it a new game per se.
Yeah, it is not really a new game, but it is.
It depends on your definition of new.
It depends on the definition of new, because I think I wrote a little bit in another point, what happens if a game wasn't on your target language, or it is new for the West, for example.
Obviously, new to you doesn't mean new. What do you mean by the whole... So the next point you've got is re-releases that mix and match content from previous releases. What do you mean by that? Do you have a specific thing in mind? I'm not sure.
I have a couple of things in mind when I wrote that one. It's
and if I go down to the next page, I start to see them. That's entirely my fault. Sorry, you crack on.
Yeah, so one of the examples I was thinking of was Dragon Quest 11S that had contents from the PS4 and 3DS releases.
3DS releases?
Yeah, there was a release on Japan on the 3DS for Dragon Quest 11. Yeah.
Totally different graphical style, everything. Yeah. And
they actually 11S has this mode where you can play Dragon Quest 11 but with the old school graphics, and that is from the 3DS version of the game that you can switch back and forth between them. And I think there was something in the PS4 version that wasn't the 3DS. I might be wrong, but the Dragon Quest 11S version has everything from the PS4 version plus everything from the 3DS version. So it is this hybrid game that is technically a game that released, but it has, I guess, hybrid stuff. The same with Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, that on the 3DS it had a side story with Linkle, the Link-like character that was a girl.
Link, yeah.
Female Link character. And that wasn't in the original release. And in the Definitive Edition it has the original game plus Linkle story plus all the DLC plus more shit.
I think that's the key, though. It's a definitive edition. It's like a director's cut. It's not a new game. This is the game in its best form, rather than being something that's new. That's my take on it, anyway.
That is true. It isn't a new game.
I was just about to go. Sorry, I was just about to go. So isn't Persona 5 Royal a definitive edition of the game? I don't actually want to drink this up again. I know. I won't drink it back up. But sorry, I just couldn't help it. I'm that felt like it was perfect. Actually, this does segue a little bit into... Because I think maybe Royal is a little bit more talking about these definitive editions. Because I was thinking to myself, and I don't know how this didn't come up last time, but Pokemon Yellow and Emerald and Crystal and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and these things. And I've never really known how to classify these games, right? Because they often do that thing where it's they take elements from, and I think it's especially noticeable in Yellow and Crystal. Maybe Emerald too. I don't know, maybe all of them. But I found that at least Yellow really does play a new experience, in the sense that there are more animations for the sprites, and you've got Pikachu behind you. The story is slightly different. I mean, the way you get creatures is different. It is genuinely kind of a different experience. And same with Crystal. I mean, I had Crystal growing up, and Crystal was just a whole other thing. That game is vastly improved over Gold and Silver. And the fact that Heart Gold and Soul Silver takes a lot of the improvements that Crystal did, and implements them. But I always wonder, because I feel like the differences were more pronounced earlier on when they were releasing these, and that as they've moved on, I remember buying Ultra Sun and I was playing it. I was this is the same fucking game. I was I don't what the heck is different in this game, I was just it's the same thing. And so now I know we talked about how angry we were about Sword and Shield, but I'm kind of glad they did DLC instead of releasing
a new game.
Yeah. Because I'm sort of yeah.
I mean, yeah. I guess DLC could technically be better than releasing a new game, but for example, there are people that wait until the third version of the thing is released to play.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you release like the game with the DLC but at a lower price, it is still like it is a higher price you need to pay up front if you want like the full experience.
Mm-hmm. But I think
but in the case of Sword and Shield, like okay, it has DLC, it doesn't have a third version, but arguably Sword and Shield is like the one game that I feel that needed like an actual third version that fixes all the stuff with the game and actually makes a decent fucking game.
Yeah. I just think, man, I think the Pokemon team is burnt out hard.
I think so too, because like what happens with the Pokemon team, the Game Freak is the one that does like the main releases of the games. And I was actually like seeing like a couple of people talk about this, that most companies has like this one big series and this other big series, and they usually have like many successful series if they are like a competent studio.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens in the case of Game Freak is that they have Pokemon, and then they had like each time they do something that's not Pokemon, it falls flat. Like what happened with Little Town Hero.
Yeah,
people keep forgetting that game released.
I just also think nobody forgives. Yeah, I don't think anyone forgives Game Freak's shit game design when it's not Pokemon yet. Like, that's probably too harsh, but you know what I mean? Like, straight up, like you're saying, it's like when Game Freak releases a game that's not Pokemon, people are like, I don't have an emotional attachment to this. I don't like it.
Sad drill dozer noises.
Yeah, though that was a good game. Yeah,
that was a good game. But then there was that Tembo the Badass Elephant or whatever it was that literally nobody played.
Yeah, that was through Sega.
Yeah, of all people. So, and then this gets compounded, just skipping slightly further ahead in the notes. Like you said, it's one thing, the third version, but then when you take like the fourth and fifth version, so your Heart Gold, Soul Silvers, or your Fire Reds, Leaf Greens, how do you square those? And I feel like those ones, when you compound that it's a graphical overhaul because it's a couple of generations ahead, I'm inclined to think that does nudge it over the line of feeling new, particularly with Heart Gold and Soul Silver, because as dumb a gadget as it is, the Poké Walk is just fun. And it's a whole thing that there's just no parallel with any of the first three versions of that game.
Honestly,
and it's functionality that isn't there.
Not only that, but especially like in the cases of Pokemon that gets like the remix from the old games to the newer games, not only it feels new because of the graphical overhaul, it also feels newer because of the extra mechanics that are attached to the game. Because like in the first games, you only have like certain amount of stats, and for example, like Psychic was utterly broken because all the ghost types were weak to Psychic, and because of some programming error, like Psychic was actually like immune to Ghost. And also like later down the line, there was like the special split where you have like special attack and special defense. And they added on like for Gen 3, they added like the hell items that technically you don't really need to use like on the main game, but when abilities were added, then it started feeling like very, very different, because now you have like more options to customize your team, and some Pokemon that weren't really viable like on the earlier games, even like to use on a team, suddenly became like full powerhouses in the later games. And that may have like more to do like with the competitive scene. And to be fair, I used to be like in the competitive scene up until the 6th generation of Pokemon. So I tend to notice this kind of differences more.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I am a firm Flareon follower. I love Flareon, but Flareon is shed on the first game, so you can't really use it without getting murdered.
Sorry, like what you're describing too to me, it feels a bit like a philosophy, like in terms of remaking games, right? Because really, it often comes down to this, right? Like we're talking a lot about remakes and like the remasters discussion when it comes to newness, and it's interesting because I just saw like in the news about Resident Evil 4 because it's being remade. And apparently Capcom actually came in, and the company, like the team that they had that were doing it, the reports are saying that they've come in to take over development because the team was trying to make it too faithful to Resident Evil 4, to the original. Which, I mean, some people are probably like, no, what? Gimme. But like, I think even from what you're saying, it sounds to us like I actually kind of love when a company tries to really change up an old property, because as much as sometimes I think like, oh, I just want to play a game with today's systems, fundamentally, an old game you can't just slap today's systems on an old game, right? Like you couldn't just take Resident Evil 2 and just be like, well, now you could just do it in third person without fixed cameras and it's fine. No, they actually like had to really fundamentally remake the game in order for that to work. So yes, it still feels like that game you remember, but it's fundamentally different. And
fundamentally new, arguably, even though it's the same story.
Exactly.
And this is probably a nice segue that you've just given us to talk about those games where they've made them again. Because when I was reading that article about the stuff with the Resi development, that game's on every system. Yep. Like if you want to play the original, you can play the original. There's no reason not to strike out and have a crack at something a little bit more different with that story and that everything else. How this both makes me feel old and is a stupid throwback. There was a port of Resident Evil 4 on the original iPod Touches back in 07, 08, 09, and it's dog shit, but I played it there.
Yeah.
That's another Resident Evil game I played a bit of. There you go. But it also made me think of a Final Fantasy VII remake, which, to be fair, Paula, you've also put in the notes. And it's called Remake, but it's basically a new game.
Yeah.
Even down to the story, and I don't know the specifics, I know they've changed something. It's also like they've taken the first 8 hours of that 30-hour RPG and blown them out, filled them out, given more to Best Girl Jessie, like completely redone the combat.
So I'll just caveat. I've beaten Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've never.
No spoilers, please.
No, I'm not going to give spoilers.
Please.
I've never beaten Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VII Remake is fucking nuts. Like I look. My partner laughs so hard when she watched me play this game because it's like hardcore anime girl stuff where like constantly no one can see this because it's video, but they're just always moving. They're like, oh hi, hey Cloud, and you're like, stop moving so much. Like it's just insane. Like no one stands still in this game. But I will say they did change a lot of stuff for sure, and a lot of it doesn't work, but I also think I highly appreciate them doing this over just like giving us a reskinned version, you know, like because it's also artistic. It's like allowing yourself to revisit something. There are significant changes in it, like significant. Even for someone who hasn't really played Final Fantasy VII, I went and looked it up after, and I was like, oh, damn, that's very different. So if you have played Final Fantasy VII and you go to play this game, you'll be like, yep, like almost right away. You're like, this is new. So yeah, I don't know. I love that shit. I mean, saw Paula too. You talked about Pokemon Let's Go, Pikachu, and Eevee. Man, little story. I got Let's Go Pikachu when I was in Mexico. It was like we were heading back, and like I downloaded it because I was so excited to play it. So like I'm on an airplane playing Let's Go Pikachu. I love that game. I'm so nostalgia blind.
So is that like the first two games? Is that like
no? It's the
Red
first
and
game.
Blue.
Oh, yes.
It's like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. It actually takes place. This is a part that I don't really get because it's supposed to take place after the originals, after Red and Green complete their journey, because you don't play as either Red or Green. You play as either the boy or the girl, and you get the rival as the other one.
Right.
Oh. But I trying my best, like, not to, like, dig too deep into stuff, but it seems like a lot of the trainers are, like, the same?
Oh, it's just yellow.
But specifically, it's that region with the 151 Pokédex.
Yes. This is the only game that I fully completed the Pokédex for, and I got the certificate, and I was very proud of myself. But yeah, I mean, it has a fundamental system change, right? I mean, it's fundamentally different because it has the.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're getting a little run up on here, but this is a topic that I feel like we'd go on for ages on. So
ever and ever.
We might next time talk a little bit about localization fun times, because I have a fun story about that too that we'd like to go into, and I'm sure Paula could enlighten us on many things. So stay tuned for that.
So stay tuned for part 3 eventually, maybe.
Yeah. Shall we move on to our favorite game? How
long to beat the game? That's the worst one we've ever done. That is the worst one.
It's not bad on my end. Not bad.
I blame myself for not doing it in the intro like I normally do. Anyway.
All right, Paula. What are we doing today? What do we got?
Give me a second.
1.
Dad joke supreme.
That's me.
I mean, Rick can't be feeling too bad if he can pull.
Hey, I'm ill. Don't be mean to me.
It's like, I'm sick.
Okay, I think I got it.
All right.
Let's go to our game of the week. That is Nuke Nukem 3D.
Oh.
Duke
do you mean Duke Nukem, or is there like a parody called Nuke Nukem?
No, it's Duke Nukem.
Duke Nukem.
Okay.
It is just my part of the title Nukem. Because if it were like, because like there's like one YouTuber that always talk about this game, I wouldn't even know it exists.
God damn it, Duke Nukem 3D. Okay. This is that.
Remember, we're all typing and entering as before.
Yeah. So.
Right.
This is from what I remember. Like, this was the one that was made. Is this the 1996 one? Yeah.
Build engine. Yeah.
Oh, god dang it. Shit, man, I really don't know.
I haven't got the first clue, but I'm going to make a educated guess.
Okay, so we're all ready to go, shall we?
Yes.
Oh, I feel like...
Interesting.
So I put main 6 hours, main plus 9 hours. Paula, main 3 hours, main plus 5 hours. I think you're honestly probably on the money there. And Rick is main 6 hours, main plus 7 hours, and 100% 9 hours.
Here's where I'm at, though. I'm playing the big brain because Paula's got 3 hours of leeway. Yes, 5 hours of leeway. There's no way it's shorter than an hour. So main 6 hours, it can be 1 to 11, and I'm happy as Larry.
We'll see.
The only problem is those build engine games have a lot of guff in them, so I'm worried that the 100% might fuck me.
What do we got, Paula?
Maybe you were a little bit too greedy there, Rick.
No, don't do that. No way.
Okay, let's reveal the times then for the audience.
Okay, breathe. Okay, go
on. Okay, so main story. I'm already out. In 9.5 hours. You two are out too.
No, Rick's still in.
No, because 9.5.
Yeah, but Rick has 5 hour leeway.
I've got 5 hour leeway.
Right. You are absolutely right. I'm orange.
What's the main plus though? If main's 9.5, I'm fucked for main plus.
It is 11 hours.
I'm in still. What's 100%?
Completion is 20 hours. Okay, no. 12.5 hours.
Ah! Rick is ahead. Oh, no. By half an hour, by half a goddamn hour. I gotta start doing half hours. Yeah.
Big brain.
All right, so that means the standings now are Rick with 20 points, Alex with 15, and Paula with 10. Oh,
taking the outright lead for the first time.
There we go. Damn, good job. All right, that's everything for How Long to Beat podcast this week. Next week we have a guest. Tune in for that. Oh, pretty exciting. Sure hope that works out, or else this is awkward. Yeah. Oh. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.